we are all connected by one force. Every language, every religion, with one general goal, to improve the well-being of all people and make the world a better place. In today's world, people are given the opportunity to live and thrive while constantly improving. But it hasn't always been this way. There was a point in our world's history when we were all at war and people didn't have any hope or belief that things would ever get better. So you may be wondering, how exactly did we evolve to the point that we're at now? Well, we now understand that the major force that has brought the world together, achieved peace, and restored hope was the United Nations. The United Nations is a vital aspect of our world today. Without their help, millions of lives would have been lost due to conflict, starvation, dehydration, and disease. It is impossible to predict how many nations would have gone down in flames in the scourge of war without the UN's treaties and peacekeeping efforts to hold us together. We would be living in a disconnected, dangerous world without the peace of mind of having a backbone to keep the world upright. The multitude of humans living without the rights guaranteed by the Declaration of Human Rights would be far beyond what we can imagine now. We believe the United Nations are leaders in worldwide collaboration to resolve major global matters. With their help, economic, social, environmental, and legal issues are settled morally and ethically with intentions to improve the well-being of all people. They display their powerful leadership by taking initiative on controversial topics to make the world more unified, tranquil, and thriving. Without question, the United Nations has a supreme legacy and are praised by people worldwide. In the mere 70 years that this prodigious organization has existed, extreme progression has since taken place throughout our world. This label of fulfillment was obviously well-earned. The UN isn't just propositional. They face risk by taking courageous actions to make humanity's many dreams a crystal-clear reality. The United Nations are the main contributors to promoting human rights in the world. By creating the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UN has clearly spelled out what rights they feel all humans should have, and they have been working hard to ensure all people are guaranteed these rights. This declaration has set a standard basis for human rights worldwide. One of these rights is the right to democracy. When the United Nations was established in 1945, 750 million people, almost a third of the world's population, lived in non-self-governing territories dependent on colonial powers. The UN has played a role in bringing about the independence of more than 80 of these countries that are now sovereign nations. However, the right to self-govern was only one of many rights guaranteed by the Declaration of Human Rights. Others include the right to equality, life, liberty, and security, freedom of speech and religion, and many more. All member states are enforced to follow the guidelines of this document to ensure that people everywhere are given their needed rights. The UN also has organizations to work towards rights for minority groups such as women, people of different races, and children. At UN meetings, celebrity ambassadors such as Emma Watson, with her famous He for She speech, encourage people to get involved for the fight for rights. These speeches inspire people to stand up for their rights, and the UN is leading people to do what it takes to get the rights they deserve. This has made a significant difference in the equality and treatment of people in our world, and by making this difference, the UN has a legacy of giving people the basics they need most: respect, freedom, and the right to happiness. Since the UN has authority over the majority of the world, it is their responsibility to maintain order between and within its member states. Fortunately, they have the ability to maintain this international order through organizations such as the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, the International Criminal Court, the International Development Law Organization, and the International Maritime Organization, which work to maintain order and serve justice worldwide.
One of the United Nations' biggest achievements is establishing and maintaining peace between its member states. One way that they are able to do this is through the UN Peacekeepers, a military force comprised of nearly 90,000 troops and military observers, as well as nearly 12,000 police personnel, 3,500 international civilian personnel, 11,000 local civilian staff, and 1,800 UN volunteers. These troops fight to protect the innocent worldwide. The UN also maintains peace by writing treaties and solving disputes between nations. Through creating peace worldwide, the UN are leading nations to having safer, calmer interactions and relationships. By keeping the world at peace and saving nations from war, the UN has earned the legacy of being international arbitrators and have earned the respect and thanks of people everywhere for protecting them. The United Nations realizes that without our Earth, we would all have nothing. That is why they have made so many efforts to preserve our environment. Some things that the United Nations has been doing for our environment include regulating carbon emissions in first world countries, reducing the amount of organic pollutants used in farming, banning toxic chemicals, protecting the ozone layer, and much, much more. They are capable of doing this through the International Fund for Agricultural Development, the Food and Agricultural Organization, and the United Nations Environment Program. They lead people to get involved in efforts to preserve our environment by creating campaigns and fundraisers for major causes. Their legacy in doing so is the praise of people who realize how important our environment is. They will also be remembered by future generations for preparing our world for what's to come.
The UN has made major contributions to vaccinating, treating, curing, and eradicating several diseases and illnesses. They are doing this through the World Health Organization, a branch of the UN committed to providing the best possible health to all people internationally. Some major successes of the World Health Organization include the eradication of polio in all but 3 nations through the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, working in over 80 nations to provide treatment and vaccinations through HIV through the Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, and saving the world billions of dollars per year in vaccination and treatment costs by curing many epidemics including smallpox. The eradication of smallpox alone, which was confirmed in 1980, has saved the world an estimated $1 billion per year. Some other things that the World Health Organization has been working on are reducing child mortality by encouraging vaccination of preventable disease, treating tropical disease in third world countries, and working with the FAO to establish higher standards for food labeling and packaging to prevent foodborne illness and increase consumer safety. In the months before the year 1999 came to an end, the world was preparing for a dramatic shift. It was about to become a new millennium. This was not the simple shift from one year to another. 1,000 years had passed, and the world was realizing that this was a time for change. The United Nations made this realization as well, and decided to do something to really make a difference. So they decided to create the Millennium Development Goals.
In September of 2000, the United Nations met at the UN headquarters in New York City for what ended up being the largest meeting of world leaders in history, for a meeting called the Millennium Summit. At this 3-day meeting, representatives from each member state of the UN collaborated and negotiated 8 goals that they thought were most important for the UN to accomplish in the years to come. Since then, global extreme poverty rates have been cut in half. Today, enrollment in primary education in developing regions has reached 90%. The world has achieved equality for women and men in education, and the UN is working to reduce gender discrimination. Now, 17,000 fewer children die each day on average than in 1990. The maternal mortality ratio dropped by 45% between 1990 and 2013. The number of new HIV infections declined by 44% between 2001 and 2012. Since the adoption of the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer, there has been a reduction of over 98% in the consumption of ozone-depleting substances. Official development assistance hit a record high in 2013. The debt burden on developing countries has dropped 75% since 2000.
After reviewing the things the United Nations has achieved from bringing world hunger to a halt, aiding refugees, eradicating polio, and creating treaties to end wars, it is apparent why they have a lasting legacy of creating peace and saving lives. Also, by starting events, raising awareness, and getting people involved, the United Nations has acted as leaders to relieve many major global issues.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one.